Okay, some people are still joining, I see, but I'm going to get us started with the introductions. So welcome to another Chmura webinar, the first in 2021. My name is Avery, and I'm going to be doing some logistics and then introducing our speakers. So if you've been watching our webinars in 2020, welcome back. But in case it's your first time, I'm going to give a little intro to what is Chmura and why we're talking about workforce data today. And just as a logistic question, if sound isn't working, just click reconnect up at the top. It's a little red button, and that should fix things right away. So what Chmura does is we provide labor market data and analysis so that you can make informed decisions that help your organization grow. So we help workforce professionals, economic development, site selectors, staffing, education from universities to secondary schools, career and technical education. And our ultimate goal is that you can use data for good and help your organization thrive. We were founded in 1998 by Chris Chmura, and now we have offices in Richmond, Cleveland, and a new one in the Dallas area. So we are economists, data scientists, statisticians, and business professionals who care about helping your community grow. And how we do that is through our JobsEQ software products, which we'll be showing you today, and also through our amazing consulting team who have decades of experience. And everything we do is driven by client satisfaction and success. We win when you win, and we really mean it. And we are really dedicated to excellence in customer service and in data quality. So what you're going to be seeing today, how we're going to be talking about workforce data today, is by showing you our JobsEQ software tool, which is the best labor market analysis tool on the market. And we're excited to show it to you today. But if you don't have time or resources to get your hands in the data and analyze your own labor market, or if you need help creating a strategic plan, like I said, we have consultants who can perform that analysis for you. So if that's something you're interested in, you can visit our website at chmuraecon.com. But even if you're, don't need a software tool or don't need consultants at Chmura, we believe everyone deserves access to high quality economic analysis, which is why we offer a lot of resources for free. We have a blog, we have a podcast, we have webinars like this one, and we also have a weekly economic update written by our economists on our consulting team. And it just gives a really good overview of the national economy. We send it out every weekend. So if you would like to get on that list, just write your email address in the comments and we'll add you right away. It's totally free, and we're happy to provide it. So now on to some logistics. If you have questions, please type them in the chat and we will get to them at the end of the webinar. And also, if you registered for this webinar, everyone will get a recording. So now, getting to the good stuff. I would like to introduce our speakers. First, we have Brian, who's Chmura's Senior Talent and Education Strategist. He's worked as an advisor to senior leadership in public school systems in both Virginia and in Ohio. He's worked a lot with our sales team as well. And he is joined today by Anthony Marchetto, one of our amazing account managers. In his time with Chmura, Anthony has shown hundreds of people how they can use labor market data to make confident decisions that help their organization, that help their region, their workforce, or their students. So with all of that out of the way, oh, and I see people commenting their email addresses in the chat for the weekly economic update. That's great. I'll go ahead and toss it over to you, Brian. Let's get the webinar started.
All right. Thank you, Avery. It's great to be here with everyone today. Thank you so much for joining us. We get really excited when we see such wonderful reception. There are 226 of you here right now. And that's just humbling for us, because that means that we have a lot of return viewers, which is, of course, like testament that maybe we're giving something of value. And we're really happy to do that. And that's ultimately why we do the work that we do and why we do these webinars. So a lot of you here today, I hope all of you are here to talk about workforce, right? Because workforce is a one of our most of our treasured partners end up working with workforce in one way or another. It's near and dear to my heart, because I can't think of sort of a better cause for someone's career than helping other people get back to work and helping people who have lost their jobs adapt and get back into the job market, maybe after people have hit hard times and stuff like that. So we're very grateful to you, not just as a company, but as citizens, of all this great work that you do. And we think that the Jobs EQ product can help you do it even better. That can be more effective. If you're already a Jobs EQ subscriber, that's wonderful. I hope we show you some new ways to think about how to use it for workforce today. And if you're new to Jobs EQ, well, welcome. Hello. And if you see something that you like here today, by all means, please reach out to us. There will be buttons throughout the presentation in the chat that allow you to connect with us about Jobs EQ. And if you see something you like, reach out. And we're going to be very happy to help you get it. So for the duration of this exercise, this webinar here today, Anthony and I are going to do a bit of a role play. Anthony is going to be what he always is, which is one of our rock solid account managers here at Chmura. I am going to be a representative from the Independence, Ohio Workforce Development Board, okay? And what we're going to be doing is I am going to ask Anthony a series of questions that he's going to show me how to answer in Jobs EQ. And hopefully you see something that resonates with you. We've tried to pick questions that our research shows really resonate with workforce professionals. And yeah, we hope that you get something good out of it. So Anthony, you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Brian.
All right, let's do this. Anthony, thank you so much for this demo here today. I've heard some good things about Jobs EQ. I'm really excited about all the stuff that it can do for workforce. And I guess where I want to start is, so I've had a couple cases this week where people have come into me who need jobs, right, who've been recently let go from other places, need to get back in the workforce, but it seems like I'm having a lot of people with family issues recently, whether they're taking care of like an elderly parent or something like that, or other things like that. And they're really saying that I need to make sure that I have a job close to home in case I need to get back to that parent and help them out with some medical stuff, or, you know, get it where we have kids all the time and I want to work close to home in case something happens at my school with my kids. So like, I know that you can probably pull data for like the state of Ohio, but are you able to tell me like what jobs are available in like around Independence?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brian. So there's a variety of ways that we can look at this, right? You mentioned Independence, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland. If we wanted to look at a state level, we could. We can also look at an MSA level, county level, and even further into a city limit level or zip code level. But obviously, we kind of understand in the workforce that folks are willing to commute for jobs, and having a pinpoint like Independence is a great spot. Here around Cleveland, a pretty average commute time that I've experienced, with individuals that I've spoken with, not only over webinars, but just in my day-to-day life, friends, family, and so forth. 30 minutes is what they commute. And what we can do in Jobs EQ is create a custom region. So with this custom region, we can do it at a variety of levels, county or zip code. Getting more granular, we'll go to the zip code level and zoom in on our screen here. Before we draw that drive time.
So you can get data down to the zip code level?
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
Absolutely. So we can include that entire zip code. So very useful in getting granular here with this drive time. And as I mentioned, we're going to look at a drive time, just a variety of ways that you can create this. If you have a region in mind that you're looking for and you want to type in specific zip codes or a county, you can do that. You can shape draw. You can draw just a general mile radius, and again, as well as the drive time here. So let me go ahead and zoom in on the area, and we'll go ahead and get to Independence. And now one thing that we can do, enter a specific address. In this instance, let's go ahead and select the center of Independence. And here we will load what an average 30-minute drive time looks like. So we can see this region that has now been carved out, which will be our 30-minute drive time around Independence. So we can see it goes up to Cleveland, but also down to Akron, just a little bit west of it here as well. So that gives a good sample size on what our labor shed and will and commute time could be. So for the purpose of this, I will call our Independence, or we'll go Indy, Ohio example, just so I can easily find it. So we'll now save this drive time in Jobs EQ. And before moving on, so what it's going to do is it's going to grab all of the zip codes that have now been touched here in this 30-minute drive time. So we can take a region preview here and take an entire look at this view here. One of the capabilities that we have with this, if, in some cases the region might look a little too big, we can trim some of the fat here as well and take out some zip codes if need be. But again, we will jump on to running this in a variety of our Jobs EQ analytics. Brian, were there certain data points that you were looking for that you'd like to view in this region? I know you had mentioned obviously some in-demand jobs, but anything off the top?
Yeah. So for like broader issues, right? Things are kind of crazy right now with the pandemic, and I want to talk at some point about how do I help people in the pandemic right now. But generally, we move on sort of a longer timetable than that. Like, we need planning to get our programs and get our trainings up to date. And I'd really like to know what's the future of employment going to look like. I don't want to prepare somebody for a job. A lot of manufacturing loss in the area right now. I don't want to prepare somebody for a job that's not going to be here in 3 years. Is there and I love that drive time that you created. Is there any way that we can look at like what jobs are going to be good a couple years from now in that region?
Sure. And you had mentioned manufacturing specifically there. So that leads me to our industry snapshot, where we can take a look rather than specific occupations at this point. We can jump into this industry snapshot and take a look at the industries within. Now we're looking at the Cleveland and Ohio, or the Cleveland MSA. But let's go use that drive time here that we've created. And we now run this example, and we can see the numbers change, right? That healthcare and social assistant employment number, we just saw it at 185,000. We've increased that by nearly 16,000 employees, just to show you how much that we've expanded our labor shed here. So what we'll find here in this table is the industries sorted again by their NAICS code at the 2-digit level, with the variety of employment features here, or current employment amount, the average annual wages, and a location quotient. When you talk about setting folks up for jobs with potential success and looking at industry specifically, we're looking at a 5-year history and trend of these industries. So healthcare and social assistance has lost 292 employees, but over that 5-year period, shown a very limited move within that industry trend, right? And we have a bar chart here to show the dip and also the growth at that time. We see a lot of dips, I think, across through most of the industries here, and we can relate that to COVID as we're looking at the 2020 quarter 3 data. But also here, we're going to see a 1-year forecast. This forecast coming from the BLS will provide a total demand. That demand will be made of the exits, transfers, and employment growth. So employment growth would show us jobs created. The transfers will show us movement throughout industries, and the exits could be, let's say you and I, Brian, are going to leave and go back to school. That would be an exit from the workforce, all factoring in here to this total demand.
Does that cover retirements too?
It does, yes.
Okay. This is good because usually, you just hear about manufacturing is collapsing around here. All the jobs are leaving and stuff like that. But I get a ton of the local manufacturing coming into me and saying, "Look, we need people for jobs, and like we don't have them, right? Like we don't have qualified labor for what we need, and so like the jobs are still there, and this kind of breaks it down for me in a way that makes sense."
Sure. And what's even helpful on that, I mean, it's a very large industry for us to take a look at. We can go one step further and look at the 6-digit NAICS level. So we can see all of those sub-manufacturing industries, let's call them, that make up manufacturing as a whole here. Okay. So we'll see specifically, right, machine shops, commercial printing, paint and coating manufacturing, and how these industries have fared over time. And if there's any that have grown, I believe we saw a annual growth percent of minus 1.3%, again, coming from the BLS. Now, one thing I always like to look at here, and as, to break kayfabe here a little bit and in the mold, Avery was describing at the beginning of, who is Chmura, who was founded. We have the benefit of being founded by economists and can enter in alternative forecast into Jobs EQ. So one thing that our brilliant economists have done, they've provided a COVID forecast for us to look at. So rather than the BLS, that standard baseline, and we see a trend that's, stagnant growth over time, it doesn't really factor in the current situation of a pandemic. So we could run this data and see how these numbers might change in that time. So as we load it here, looks pretty similar in a sense. So commercial printing, but also not as some drastic changes here over that time. And we can move this out 10 years in a direction. And the forecast, we want to run this forecast at a county level, which we can go ahead and do, but just to show it as the example, let me go to Cuyahoga County in Ohio, run it at that level, just to give a general snapshot here. And we can see actually a little bit stronger bounce back at that time. So industries that that
makes sense. If we're supposed to get the vaccine and stuff like that, I guess things would start to pick up.
Absolutely. And that's one of the big things that I know has been factored into that forecast. So some industries that have shown a pretty steep decline, right, can have maybe a bit quicker bounce back as well.
Hey, Anthony, my colleague Cindy here wants to know, do exits include those that are laid off or people who've lost their jobs?
The exit, so that would be a temporary hold and factor into the that would factor into the unemployment, right? The layoff there. And that data that we can see a little bit more specifically would be found in our occupation snapshot.
Okay. All right. So we'll get there.
Yes. So what I'll do is, and I'll move out of here, the occupation.
Hey, real quick before you do, Anthony, is there a way, it's good to know what's going to happen in 1 year, but I'd like to know, what's going to happen a little bit further into the future? Say, what's the economy going to look like in 5 years? I see that projection years box. Does that help?
Certainly. So we can move this out 5 years if we'd like, and we can move it out as far as 10 years. So our forecast will go out 10 years as well as the BLS forecast. And the same thing with the history. We can look at that industry history and change out to 10 years as well. So again, seeing this number increase on the demand side, but that annual growth percent change might alter a little bit, but still give you that year by year growth percent.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, cool. What else?
So let's go ahead, as I had mentioned, the occupation snapshot. Going to have a very similar look here to our industry snapshot, but where we had previously seen, and I'll go back to our independence example here quickly and run this, where we had seen industries sorted by NAICS codes. We're now going to see the occupation sorted by their SOC code. Right here, we see the total employment numbers, a mean annual wage, that location quotient, and here is where we'll find the current unemployment statistics factored into the occupation. So we're looking at, again, quarter 3 2020 data, seeing the overall unemployment, what that rate looks like, and then a link to some online job ads here in addition to that. Again, we see that employment change over a 5-year period with an annual growth percent and the very similar demand here as well.
What's the difference between this and what we just looked at?
So this is going to be specific occupations, whereas we were looking at the totality of the industries. And obviously industries are going to be made up of different individuals and occupations, whereas, an example, I could be in sales, but we could have one person who is a plumber. We might be working in the same industry, but vastly different occupations. So a different breakdown.
So this is like if I go down to a couple rows and I go to production occupations, production, that's telling me that no matter who they work for, that they're in production occupations.
That is correct.
Okay.
And much like we did with the industry example, we could take this one step further and hone in on the production occupations, drop it to a 6-digit SOC code, and now look at all of those production occupations that make up.
So SOC codes are just they're just a way of classifying occupations?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, this is good. All right.
Now, Brian, you had sure, and I was going to say you had mentioned the differences between the industry and occupation data. There's also some links to that data as well, and I'm happy to show you that. And that would be found in our industry and occupation mix. So, to make up an industry, you need occupations and you need industries to create occupations effectively. So what this tool does here is it helps give a pretty good snapshot, and still looking at our region. We'll use the manufacturing industry as a good example here. This is now going to show us what occupations are making up the manufacturing industry. So looking at that at a 2-digit level, but the occupations at a 6-digit, and providing that current employment amount. Here's another demand that we're looking at too as well for this specifically, and we can scroll down, so on and so forth.
Oh, so this is pretty good. So this tells me this almost tells me okay, if a manufacturer is going to close its plant or something like that, this is the mix of people that I'd have to find jobs for, basically.
That's correct.
All right.
That's correct. And we can also look at this on the other side and go industry specific. Let's use, we could take a specific example, or I had mentioned sales work. Let's use a customer service rep as a quick example here, because we can find customer service reps across a variety of industries, and we run this. We'll now look at what industries will we find this specific occupation in, and it'll give a percent breakdown here in just a sec. And the screen share always holds us up just by a few more seconds.
Oh, so it's usually faster than this?
Much quicker.
Okay.
So here as an example, we'll go ahead and take a look at the long-awaited data of what industries will find customer service reps in. It'll sort it here by its NAICS and provide very similar info, but now look at a 10-year demand over this time. We can go back to 1 year if we needed.
Okay, cool. All right, pause, role play exercise to toss it back to Avery.
All right, thanks, Brian. And we have some questions, and everyone will ask them at the end, so thank you. But we are having a brief pause because the Chmura team has some really exciting news. So I know many of you on this webinar are JobsEQ clients already. Some of you may not be. But so here at Chmura, we want our JobsEQ products to provide you with the highest quality data and also a really user-friendly experience. And so our team has spent the last year talking to clients and doing research and development to make JobsEQ even more user-friendly. And so in just a week, on February 8th, we are releasing a JobsEQ update and a series of new JobsEQ products. And again, everything you love about JobsEQ will stay. But for our current clients, imagine that when you log on to JobsEQ on February 8th, you are going to see a beautiful, accessible new layout that will make it easier, far easier to perform high quality labor market research. It's the same data, it's just going to be easier to use. And you'll have instant access to all of Chmura's training videos, webinars, podcasts, and blogs from within JobsEQ. And so for our current JobsEQ clients, this update on February 8th, it's going to be seamless. It's going to be easy. Everything you love about JobsEQ will stay, plus some new features will make JobsEQ easier to navigate. So you're not going to lose any of your customizations. You're not going to be charged more. And you can choose to keep the traditional JobsEQ landing page, like what Anthony is showing us right now. So if you're a JobsEQ client, you should have been getting emails about these updates. And so what we are, if you want to get ahead of things, right, what you can do is sign up for a training under training and resources in JobsEQ. I'm publishing this button. So if you click on that and you go down, actually, Anthony, can you show us, click on training and resources?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So you can sign up for a training so that you can be super confident about how to use the new layout. Again, the analytics are going to be the same, but how you get to them will now be easier. So sign up for that training if you're a client. And then if you're not a client yet and you're thinking, how does this impact me? So we're releasing a series of, like I said, new tailored JobsEQ products. So those are going to be JobsEQ for education, JobsEQ for workforce, JobsEQ for economic development, and then our premium level tool that puts all of those together, JobsEQ Pro. So again, all of those are going live on February 8th. And so if you are not a client yet, pre-book your demo now. I'm publishing this button right here. All you have to do is click schedule demo, and we will put a time on the calendar to show you the new workflows and how JobsEQ can help you win. So pre-book your time now for after February 8th. We're really excited. We, put a lot of work into, continually improving. And so we're incorporating, we've incorporated client feedback, and it's going to look great. We're very excited. So clients, register for that training, and not a client yet, let us convince you. Let us show you what we've got. So please pre-book your demo now. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to your account manager, or you can even ask them here during the webinar. We want to make this as smooth for you as possible, because the whole point will be same data, more user-friendly. So we're excited about that, but I'm even more excited, Brian and Anthony, to hear the rest of your webinar. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Avery. And before I jump back in, let me explain to you, let me expand a little bit on what Avery said about JobsEQ, the changes that are coming, right? So today, we have structured this around the questions that you have to answer as workforce professionals. Like, what are the most common problems that you face, and how do you use JobsEQ to resolve them? That's exactly how the new Jobs EQ is lined up. You don't just land on this screen of a menu of the analytics and have to figure out which one to use for a specific problem. We've set it up so that you identify the problem that you have to solve, and you just click on that, and then we'll walk you through the analytics that are best suited to answer that question. So I just think it's going to make everybody's user experience a lot more streamlined. It's visually a step up from where we are right now. And again, for those of you who are clients, I'm excited for you to get this, and I think you'll be excited when you see what it can do. All the people that we've talked to, all of our current clients who we've shown sketches of it so far, are really excited by it. So, but anyway, Anthony, sorry about that. I had to step out for a second.
No, sorry. Brian, Bonnie asks, can you go back to where you created a custom account?
Correct. And Bonnie, I'm going to assume the custom region that we had created at the beginning, that would be on our this gear tool here, the settings. Right, you'll see it pop up and it'll save custom regions that you've had created. So you can create as many custom regions as you need here and enter them into Jobs EQ simply by creating new region. That'll take you to the map, and then you will have the ability to create the zip code or county level in whichever fashion you desire.
Great. Anthony, I get a lot of businesses coming to me, and they ask me things like, well, I'm having trouble attracting enough machinists to work for me. Am I paying them enough? Do I need to adjust the salary? If I'm starting if I'm having a new position, what do I list the salary as? I assume you got something like that in here, right?
Great question, and yes, we do. Our occupation wages, you can see right here, this will provide us a variety of occupation data that we're going to see. And at a very broad level, let's go ahead and take this to total and all jobs. And we'll run it at the 2-digit level, just so we get a nice sample size here. Again, we'll see the occupations sorted by their SOC code, and we'll also find what a mean wage would look like for the occupation. But here, to your point, that entry-level wage for the region. And I had selected here to sort it by this, so we can now see the top occupations and what the most experienced or the highest entry-level wage is. And then on top of that, we have the experienced wages for these occupations with a percentile breakdown as we move across here again as well.
So what you're telling me is management really likes to pay themselves.
Certainly.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So this is good. And I can do this for pretty much any occupation I can think of?
That's correct. So if you have one that we specifically want to look into, would you like to do machinist?
Yeah, let's do machinist.
I can. We'll go ahead and select machinist, and we'll run this, and it should automate. Yep, automate it to the 5-digit level here.
Okay.
We can now see a machinist specifically, right? What its mean wage is, what the entry level wage is, and always here, which is nice, you have a nice comparison. We're looking at the state of Ohio and the U.S. in total, and so we can see the mean wage is a little bit lower than what the state provides, and also what the U.S. provides. And then even here, holding it to total in all occupations. Now, with that being said, one thing that we can look at and is a newer tool to Jobs EQ that we've added over the pandemic is our labor availability, that there's been some good use here. So if we take we'll go ahead and take the mean wage of that 41.8, and we'll select this labor availability, we can enter in that mean wage and see what we'll now find is how many machinists are in this occupation and how many are making over this amount, how many are making under this amount. So let's go.
That's good, because I was thinking new machinist makes $29,000 a year. Why would they want to start with you if that's all they can make?
And right, we see a pretty even split as it being the mean wage. But if we want to go one step further, and let's say we want to try and produce a competitive market, right, and attract some good talent, where would 45,000 a year land us?
Okay.
Right, and now we see a larger discrepancy here. So this gives a good idea of where we can competitively price jobs that we are essentially recruiting talent for.
So I can probably tell a local business that they want to be sure to get the machinist that they want. If they want an experienced machinist, they can probably pay them $45,000. It'll be above the mean, and there'll be plenty. It looks like there'll be like 3,000 people who probably like that job.
Certainly, and we can again always go back to the wage distribution and just look at what that experience wage is. Right, listed at 48.2. So that's another guide as well.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that works. All right. All right. I said I'd get to the COVID stuff, and obviously, Northeast Ohio was having a tough time economically before all this COVID stuff happened. This COVID stuff happened, and like I do this long-term planning, but I also got to get people back to work right now. Do you have anything that lets me see what jobs are available right now?
I do, yes. So when we were looking in the occupation snapshot, we saw a direct link to RTI, our job postings data. It actually showed how many jobs over the last 30 days were posted for a specific occupation, but we can go one step further and look at the data behind that. So let's enter in a pretty large region for us. I'm going to go with Cuyahoga County here as a whole.
Okay.
And we'll take a look at over the last 30 days, here are all the jobs that have been posted in Cuyahoga County, currently just sorted by the top 10, but we can see over 30,000 total ads during this time. We see retail salesperson, registered nurses, first-line supervisors, and so on. As we continue to scroll, we can see where specifically these job posts are located. And the reason that you'll see Cleveland, Ohio listed a few times is because we're pulling from the actual job post itself. So with our RTI, we'll pull from over 40,000 different sites, updating it every 24 hours and crawling that raw data. So it's up to Brian, let's say you post a job and listed in Cleveland, but I'm the guy who posts it and lists a zip code behind it. That's going to be the difference there in locations. Okay. You have the ability to filter certain jobs. Let's say if we want to do a general keyword filter, and actually let's add it in the location, and we just want to look at all jobs in Cleveland. Let's make sure we get it contains Cleveland. Right, we'll see this location update here to everything of Cleveland, and we can always drop down these rows if we need to.
Okay.
As well.
What if I want to look at specific jobs? Like, let's talk about machinist. I got somebody who's a machinist that I've been working with right now. Can we see if there are any job posting just for machinists?
Sure, we can. And see how the occupation, right, sorted and linked to the SOC code. If we'd like to do that, we can enter in any SOC code or search a machinist. Let's go ahead, and we can see 56 total ads over the last 30 days. And we can even click into these 56 total ads to see what the job title is, who it is that's hiring, again, where, when it was posted, and if it's still an active job post. So we can see Schaefer Gearworks. This will take us to the actual job post. As I clicked on it, it opens up to a new tab, but we can see the entire job post itself. Going back to this here, now that, Brian, we've gone to machinist specifically, there's a few more things that we find here. Some jobs will list certifications that are required for the occupation, but also skills as well. And here we jump to our hard skills. So this is a good indicator on telling, well, what's the workforce currently looking for, and who can we put back into the workforce? Do you have certain skills, blueprint reading being one as an example, micrometers, and does that give you a leg up when looking for?
So those are the hard skills that employers want machinists to have?
Correct.
So if I were looking at, like, okay, I got to get this machinist back to work right here. What is, I could evaluate which of these skills that he has. And then maybe we could get him into a quick CAD course if he's lacking CAD right now, and that would increase his chances of getting a job.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Same thing with soft skills, the intangibles as well,
Okay.
right? What kind of skills here are required? And again, too, pulling from those specific job ads themselves. Here we see the job titles that make up the machinist SOC code, and then any sort of education requirements listed on there as well.
Great. Okay. Great. Well, this is great, Anthony, and I could ask you about this stuff all day. But based on the chat, it seems like my colleagues have a lot of questions too, maybe more so than normal. So, Avery, do we want to start questions now?
That sounds like a great idea because people have a lot of excellent questions. So first, from Cindy, she wants to know, do exits include those laid off or lost their job?
Let's go ahead and get the specific definition, because this is one thing that I traditionally like to rely on, is our training and resources tab. We have a data dictionary. I want to get the exits, the number of forecasted workers to leave. And Cindy, it might be one that I want to check on. Brian, feel free to add in if you know. But that's a great question. Let me get the glossary up here as I filibuster on it as well. Get to
Anthony, I'm sorry, I spaced out for a second. What's the question?
Sure. The exits, the laid off workers, do they fall in the exits or the transfers? And
can you get out of the documentation for a second? Just let me
yes.
look at the snapshot. Okay. So they would fall. Well, see, it really depends, right? Because this is a look at what the demand is going to be over the next 5 years. If the position is eliminated, they would fall under that employment growth category, right? It'd be a little different in an occupation snapshot. I think if they, so I think like laid off in the position eliminated, that's counted in employment growth.
Yeah. Okay, so I also went ahead and asked our amazing JobsEQ live chat team. So I'm going to ask another question for y'all, and we'll get back to this one if I hear a response. So the next question is, can we see an example of the list of skills required for a specific occupation?
Sure. And there's a couple ways to go about that. One being the RTI, right? That'll list a good way of showing the skills that employers would require, right? And what they're looking at the current time. But if we look, and we'll use machinist as an example, when we go into JobsEQ here on the occupation snapshot, each individual occupation that we click on, it'll have its own occupation profile. This occupation profile will provide us a BLS definition, and then also, right, give us some training information here if there's schools in the area providing that. But this attributes tab will show us the knowledge and abilities that are required or scored in a heightened sense for this specific occupation. So here are certain attributes, and then skills here, the abilities that we saw, right? Manual dexterity was one we saw in RTI here as well.
Okay, so I asked to Patrick from our chat team came on about the exits, and he says exits covers anyone who leaves the labor force. So it could cover those who are laid off, and then maybe aren't looking for work anymore. And he says, if you want to see unemployment, you should go look at the monthly occupation employment in Data Explorer.
Which we can always do too. And our Data Explorer tool is a great do-it-yourself table tool, right? We can build out a variety of data sets here, and the monthly occupation unemployment being one. Let's use Cuyahoga County. We can enter in for machinists, and look at the unemployment number and that rate here as well. Just another step further.
Awesome. So we have a question from Mark. He's saying, okay, if I was helping students get a job, is it possible to find which employers are hiring in a certain region for specific majors?
Sure. So if we jump back into RTI as one, right? Which employers are hiring in a certain region, and let's use Cuyahoga County as the example. See this number of 356 programs, right? These are going to be the programs that might be linked to a specific occupation. So we can go ahead and look at the finance programs, add it to our filter here, and now we're just going to source out all the 430 finance programs, but we also see they might be asking for a variety of other programs as well. But we can go and now see who these specific employers are, what certifications they may be asking for here as well.
Great.
And then also just quickly on that, we have furthermore awards data as well. So listing degrees and linking them to specific occupations as well. This is our SIP to SOC crosswalk. So if we look at the CIP code of a machine tool technology machinist, here's all the SOC codes that it will then link to.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's great. We have a question about resume forensics from Shirlene from Cumberland's workforce region in Kentucky. She's saying, I'm currently working with employers who need welders ASAP. Would resume forensics help me with that?
It very well could. So what this will tell you, Shirlene, is in a very similar look to RTI. We're looking at Cuyahoga County. We are able to source a collection of resume samples, and I believe it was done as of Q4 2020, yes, where it'll show occupations listed on a resume, but, and I'm sorry, Avery, say the occupation again?
Welders.
Welders. So let's go ahead and add that into our occupation filter. So let's just look at the 220 occupation welder resumes that we have here and where they're residing, the schools. Let's see what skills have been listed here. So here's certain certifications that a welder may list and the variety of skills that have also been listed on resumes.
Okay, thank you.
And we can, again, look further as well.
Yeah, I love how they're broken down really specifically like that. So Michael asks, can you compare talent availability by occupation and compare cities or states? How would you do that, like big scale?
Sure. So talent availability, and Michael, if I'm understanding correctly, we'd be looking at if we are hiring for, or a certain industries coming to our area, right? I guess there's a couple ways to go about this. Our what if analytic would show us if a manufacturing industry is going to come to Cuyahoga County, and we're going to use, let's go back to that Indy labor shed example that we used, right? And this is going to be our labor shed. We have 400 people we're going to hire for this manufacturing industry, right? Very broad, so should pull a good yield here. This will give us some estimates on what occupations we believe will need to make up the total number of 400, right? Anticipating 28 team assemblers here. And then we're taking the team assembler SOC code and showing who's employed in this labor shed and also who's unemployed. Adding that number together, dividing it by 28 will give us this potential candidate per opening number. So it tells us how strong, right? We're going to estimate we have 362 candidates for one opening is where we get that from. When we talk about the talent specifically, we can look at one of our neat add-on tools, Labor EQ, in Jobs EQ here, where we can go ahead and we can run the same event size for manufacturing at the industry level. This is going to take at the MSA level and provide us a decision grid here, and it'll list us the top 4 where we see this scale. What are the top listed, or weighted averages here? So let me highlight over labor availability as an example, and it'll give us a definition, the percent of labor needed for ample supply, and training pipeline, age pipeline. So talent, I guess, can mean a variety of things, right? Are we going to put more of an emphasis on the age? Are we going to put more on the cost of living? And we can scale this or weight this scale in the fashion that we'd like, based off of, again, importance.
Nice.
And we can break it out further here with our decision grid and look a little bit deeper into the MSAs listed. We could show all regions and all 384 MSAs here.
Oh, great.
Scroll back to the top. So yeah, a couple different ways to go ahead and do that.
Awesome. Thank you. So we have a question about job postings. This is from Susan. She said, so would you add all the Ohio job postings together to get, I guess, she writes an actual number, so maybe like the total number of open postings?
Sure. So Susan, we can, and I could have explained this time frame filter here, we can look at the active only positions if we'd like. So let's go ahead and we'll use Ohio as an example and say active only. So this tells us we have nearly 176,000 total job posts that are active. And then again, we'll get our breakdown here. So the total will always stay consistent with whichever filters we have selected. But again, start at the very high level and we can make it more detailed. If we go to the last 30 days, let's take a look. This now factors in the job posts that have been closed over that time too. So gives us about 75,000 more jobs into the pool here that we're looking at, or job posts we could look at.
Okay, great. So while you stay here, Scott asks, if you check on the little square boxes to the left, will that save into a custom file? Like, what are those used for?
So you can do one of two things. One, add to filter. So let's use, again, registered nurse as an example. Previously, I was adding the filter manually on the right-hand side. You can do a one-stop shop and add the registered nurse to a filter, and it creates that based off of what box or section you were in. But if we get rid of that and go back to square one, and let's say I want to look at stock fillers and orders, first line supervisors of retail work, and heavy truck drivers, I can create an occupation group here and let's call it RTI custom. We can save this, right? And now, Scott, not only can we go ahead and look at this in RTI specifically, but we can look at this custom occupation group in all these different analytics here. So let's go back to the occupation snapshot quickly as an example, right? We're going to look at the data sets and points here of the employment numbers, unemployment, forecasted in history, but also showing us the makeup of this custom group, holding it to the total occupation number as well. And the same goes for the little boxes here in the industry snapshot, the occupation snapshot. You can create these groups from a variety of different analytics in Jobs EQ. And it'll save as well. So if we went back to RTI, we can go ahead and add a filter here, occupation, RTI, custom. We add this in and we see it return.
Hey, could you filter for apprenticeships in job postings?
That's a very good question. Let's see. I'm going to start from scratch and I want to go to the or the job types. I don't know if there's anything, so we can do certain.
Yeah, Anthony, I think your best luck is going to be to try to add a keyword filter.
Keyword. Okay.
We don't. RTI can pick up some of this stuff, but we don't tag things as apprenticeships. per se, unless they show up in the job posting itself.
Right.
And if you don't mind, I want to quickly use a test case here. Let's take, because I know a plumber has apprenticeships. We can find what apprenticeships are listed with certain occupations based off the occupation profile. So I'll use coppersmith as a quick example and go back to RTI. We'll use Ohio over the last 30 days. Let's add it to the keyword filter and see here if anything yields. Okay, so it doesn't show that it does. Maybe it's just the apprenticeship itself, or it's just a matter of trial and error. So I wanted to give it a shot there. But great question and great feedback for us to potentially log.
Okay, great. Where does we have a few more questions. So where does our monthly unemployment data come from? Is that BLS? Is that Laos?
The monthly unemployment data, and I just want to verify myself on that too. We can pull from a variety of different sources, right? BLS being one.
Uh-huh.
Let me go ahead and so it'll come from the Laos monthly data, BLS. Okay. Yes.
Great. So we have another question, which is, so we're thinking from maybe a staffing perspective here. Can JobsEQ, this is from Michael again, can JobsEQ be used to determine target cities for a company expansion? Could you analyze changes in talent availability by city or state?
Sure. So one big thing when it comes to that, and again, if I'm understanding correctly, the what if analytic has been helpful on that end, as well as labor EQ. And Avery, can you read that? Just read that one more time.
Yes. So this is if we're thinking about a company expansion. So can JobsEQ be used to determine target cities for a company expansion? Can you analyze changes in talent availability by city or state?
So analyze changes in talent availability.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Anthony, this might be a labor EQ. I think that shows the variation in talent.
Yeah.
Between areas, which probably is closest to Michael's question.
Okay. And scoring that in the
because
okay. There's and to show change as well, in the data explorer is just another spot to do a breakdown of specific occupations, and you can see the occupation change over that month. Have you been losing talent? Have you been gaining talent in a specific occupation? And directly there, you can put it up against other cities as an example to see, have we had greater growth in Dallas or less growth in Cleveland, and so on. But good point there on.
Great. Yeah. So we recently were working on an ebook soon to be released about how to choose the perfect location. And so it's for site selection, real estate consultants. And so what we did in that ebook, which again will be coming out sometime soon, is we started with labor EQ, just like you did, Anthony. And then we use labor EQ as kind of a springboard. So each of those, labor availability, training pipeline, age pipeline, you can dive deeper within JobsEQ. You can dive deeper in each of those 12 metrics. So like Anthony said, I would start with labor EQ, and then you can get all of the details on how things have been changing and how they're forecasted to change also in JobsEQ.
Perfect.
So, all right, that was Michael's question. I know we are at 1:01. We just have one more question about employer database, and then we'll sign off. So everyone, I know if you have to go, thank you so much for joining us. We'll do a proper sign off in a second, but let's do one more question about employer database. Does employer database include the NAICS code assigned to the name of a business or establishment in our area? This person had a request from a company asking about wage trends for competitive hiring in their industry.
Okay.
But they had to best guess NAICS code that like applied to their business. Can we look that up in employer database?
Yes, so it does. When we look at employer database on the surface here, right, we will see the company that it is and all NAICS, or not all NAICS, but the top 3 NAICS associated with it. If you would go a step further and export the data, if there's instances where a company might have 5 NAICS associated with it, it'll list all those NAICS codes associated there. So in short, yes.
Okay, great. And Cindy, yes, employer database is an add-on. So with that, thank you everyone for joining us. Brian, do you want to give us a send-off?
Yeah, we really enjoyed this. We really enjoyed talking to you today. If you enjoyed what you were hearing, please let us hear from you again. Again, we're going to have a whole new, a brand new face on Jobs EQ with the same great analytics starting on February 8th. Clients, please register for training so you can get the most out of the new front end of the platform. Prospects, please pre-schedule a demo. We would love to show you what the new Jobs EQ looks like. Again, same great data. If you're used to using Jobs EQ the way it is, you can still do that, but we think the new thing will really improve your user experience. And obviously, if you have any questions about anything we've talked with today, reach out to Avery, Anthony, or myself. And thank you very much for being here. We hope to see you again.
Thank you all.